when you pull on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Get that through your head.
And here we go.
And it is no good. He missed it. Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs to the 50. He runs to the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
What a wild card weekend. Try and say that 5 times fast. Welcome to another edition of the program, otherwise known as NETMA. I'm your host, Tyler Paul. Glad to have you back after, well, we watched probably the end of an era for a couple of teams over the past of the weekend. I think it's the first time this season, or maybe the first time in a few seasons, that I've seen the Who You Got go 0 for whatever, how many games there are. I know it's a whole lot easier to do in the playoffs, but holy cow, every single teams that the community favored lost. And those are teams that were in the playoffs last season, have been in the playoffs for seasons past, had gotten by at least the first round, had been one of the mainstays in the SFL playoffs, if not had been in the championship game only a half a year ago. And then everything goes topsy-turvy on them. Let's get into it here in a few seconds. And City Bird, I gotta thank my sister for that one. She has good taste, so I'd have to ask her. But I agree, it is a fantastic sweater. You can't tell, a little under the weather still over the past weekend, but feeling a little bit better. But hanging in there. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's get into Jacksonville, London. And London has turned Queensway into his own personal playground, hasn't he? And continues to dominate when playing against Jacksonville. Now has 13 touchdowns to only 1 interception, which he threw this past weekend against Jacksonville. I told you it was going to be a similar style of performance from Johnny Pickler from when the last time these two teams played. Again, Pickler was nigh perfect, minus that 1 turnover and 7 incomplete passes. 81.5% completion percentage for Johnny Pickler, and the Knights had themselves a ball game. Jacksonville played well toward the end of that football game, I thought. But it was just too little too late. The Knights, both offensively and defensively, just were better on the day. Again, I'm going to say it again. Pickler was nigh perfect. He did what he was advertised to do. What London had brought him there to do from Louisiana, from St. Louis. This is what Johnny Pickler can do. If he's got a good game plan, if the team against him isn't 100% prepared for what Johnny Pickler can do, Pickler will pass and punish your defense. That's the story of the football game. London now is going to have a extremely, well, I wouldn't say extremely tough matchup, but it's going to be London versus Baltimore. You only need to look to week 12 of season 17 to figure out whether or not London can take down a nigh unstoppable Baltimore Vulture team. This match is going to be fun coming up in the quarterfinal round. All right, on to game number 2 of the wild card weekend. Mexico City, Charleston. Look who finally showed up. Buchanan Simons. Where has he been all this season? Was set on air, only had 1 touchdown. My apologies. I thought I had, thought I was better at doing some of this stuff. But the Jacksonville. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Charleston decide that now we unleash Buchanan Simons, or Buchanan Simons has himself a fantastic day. Had one of the longest passing touchdowns from Kentez Johnson that we'd seen all season by someone other named than Lyric Da Vinci. And yes, Lyric Da Vinci also got involved in the mix. But Mexico City unable to cope with Charleston for that second half. It looked like Mexico City was going to do Mexico City things, and then Matt Wilson throws ducks. 5 ducks from Matt Wilson? He did throw 4 touchdowns, but it was the defense by Charleston again making plays. The Predators are a fantastic defense. We've known this. They get a rematch versus Louisiana now in the quarterfinal round versus a team that shut them out at Stack Up Stadium. That's the Louisiana Revolution. Charleston looking for revenge. They've grown a whole lot. They know how Kentez works in their system. They have developed plays that have better suited Kentez since that football game. I do not expect at all for Charleston to be shut out in this football game in the quarterfinal round. Meanwhile, for the Preds, took care of business. Mexico City, a second team that expected to be far. There goes my preseason favorite, the Mexico City Aztecs, to win the championship. Another tough season. Couldn't quite take home the division, and then they just fall out of the playoffs to a very good Charleston team. We'll see what happens next season. All right, on to Sunday's contests. Tulsa, DC, mythed the second half. The Dragons were turned into a myth that second half. Nothing doing. Turnover upon turnover upon turnover. Desperados kept it clean. DC lose the ball 4 times. All on Savage synergies, 4 interceptions. The Tulsa Desperados have come into the playoffs hot. And they look to stay that way. Tulsa has become a much better football team. It's kind of like a team we'll talk about after this game, but a team that has been down on their luck for many seasons. Finally, the Desperados come away with their first playoff victory in franchise history. It's on the road in a tough environment. They turned the Dragons' offense around completely. They took the DC Dragons playbook, the play scheme, the no nonsense, we're going to control the football, we're going to score points, we're going to allow you to nothing, we're going to play no nonsense football. That is what Tulsa did, not DC this week. DC tumbles out of the playoffs. They still haven't won a playoff game since their championship all the way back in season 5. It's good to see them back in the playoffs. For Tulsa, they get their first win. They play well. JQ, I think, was pretty impressive. Douglas Brown and Kevin Say. 2 great running backs. 2 top 10 performers. I think the Kevin Say run for DC, though, tops the top 10 of the season. Honestly. Check out that run. A pitch play that, yes, they tossed away the football game. They ran that play so many times. But the one time it worked, it was gorgeous, beautiful, Hall of Fame worthy for Kevin Say. Undoubtedly all-time run. Check it out. It's in the highlights. You will not be displeased. If you leave looking at that highlight package, especially that highlight of Kevin Say, leaving with a sort of uneasiness, you haven't really enjoyed football until you've seen that play. It was basically beast mode, SFL style. but I think on a much more grander scale. So, even in the loss, DC played pretty well in the first half. Second half, turned back into a myth. Tulsa is going to get Vancouver. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting football game. We'll talk about more this week. All right. Final game of the weekend, and it's silencing the storm. The Sioux Falls Sparrows finally get one over the Storm in the playoffs, knocked out twice in 2 previous meetings between the two clubs. In both cases, the Storm would go on to win a championship game. The Sparrows finally take it down. Does this mean Sioux Falls is going to a championship and winning it all? I don't know. It was a fantastic football game. As it says below there, Sparrows let their 17-point lead, their 17-0 point lead, evaporate to the end of that third quarter. But then Sioux Falls took off. The defense reemerged, and Florida is no more this season. The Sparrows played like the old Sparrows. The defense was sublime. G.P. Wells had himself a good day on the ground. Julian Tyree was fantastic. Another quarterback with over 80% completion percentage. 86% completion percentage. I think that's the best of the weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Really solid day from Tyree. Cochran unable to control the football in that fourth quarter. 3 turnovers, under 250 passing yards, just barely. Boletsky held to 55 yards. That's something we talk about. We talked about last week. Sioux Falls knows how to stop the run. They stopped Charlie Boletsky, made Florida one-dimensional. That's the ball game. I thought Florida would be able to overcome it with a passing game. Unfortunately, the Sparrows, fortunately for the Sparrows, they overcome that. And they take down Ron Cochran, Charlie Boletsky, and the rest of the Florida Storm. So it's the Sparrows who will get the Lone Star Glory in Denton, Texas. So the quarterfinal round, I don't have the official graphic on me, but the quarterfinal round is going to look like this, and we'll talk about that through this the rest of the week. Tulsa is going to be on the road in Vancouver. That's game number 1 Saturday at 2:30 on Next Level and Rare Drop. Of course, all these games will be played live on Next Level, and then it's the backup that we have to look forward to. That changes every so often. So Rare Drop gets the first game on each day. Twitch and YouTube will be Saturday, the Saturday evening game. YouTube will be the Sunday evening game. So we talked Sioux Falls, Vancouver, 9 seed versus 1 seed. That's in Vancouver. That's the first game of the weekend. Sioux Falls Lone Star takes place right after. Charleston, Louisiana is the Sunday at 2:30 ball game. 6 versus 3 seed, and of course London versus Baltimore, the final game of the evening. And I think this is probably. I'm going to make I'm not going to tell you exactly what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking Baltimore should be shaking their boots right now. Yes, they've had an extra week to prepare, but I think this week is as good as any in the SFL season 18 for Baltimore to come away with a loss, and a loss that would see the number 2 seed out of the playoffs. So we'll talk about more of the playoffs tomorrow and Wednesday, and of course Thursday before Friday we hit the SFLM's regular season week 2 matchups. But we'll talk more tomorrow, right back here on NETMA, right back here on YouTube. I've been Tyler Falk, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.